An ancient city stripped of its walls serves as an open invitation for any passing army. Without a physical perimeter, a population lives in a state of constant, defenseless vulnerability. By the 5th century BC, Jerusalem had become that vulnerability. The city lay in charred ruins, its gates reduced to ash, a stark contrast to the absolute, opulent security of the Persian Empire nearby. Nehemiah lived within that Persian safety as the king's cupbearer, a role defined by luxury and royal proximity. Despite his comfortable status, he chose to carry the weight of a ruined city he had never seen. When news of the destruction reached him, Nehemiah wept and fasted for days. His prayers show him identifying personally with the historical failures and sins that led to his people's collapse. The Persian king eventually noticed Nehemiah's grief and asked what he needed. Before speaking a single word of his request, Nehemiah executed an arrow prayer. This timeline shows the anatomy of that split second. It begins with a silent mental petition shot toward heaven, followed instantly by a calculated request for timber, safe passage, and royal authority. Facing impossible opposition requires this specific symmetry: the spontaneous faith to rely on God in a moment of crisis, and the cold logic to plan for the resources required to finish the job. This top-down blueprint reveals the massive scale of the reconstruction. Rebuilding a 2.5-mile perimeter using a group of untrained volunteers presented a daunting logistical nightmare. Nehemiah solved this by decentralizing the labor. He assigned every worker, from goldsmiths to perfume makers, to rebuild only the specific section of the wall located directly in front of their own house. The reconstruction begins at the sheep gate, historically the point where sacrificial animals entered the city. It serves as the starting line, where the work of restoration begins with sacrifice. Further down the wall, the progression reaches the water gate. This was where the scribe Ezra eventually stood to read the law, providing the internal purification the city lacked. The sequence ends at the inspection gate, where the population was counted and held accountable, mirroring a final spiritual audit. When every family took responsibility for the stones at their own front door, the entire city became secure. Community-wide revival grew out of these individual, local commitments to fortify personal boundaries. As the walls rose, hostile local governors like Sanballat and Tobiah realized psychological warfare wasn't stopping the progress. They pivoted, organizing armed raiding parties to kill the workers. Nehemiah adapted by splitting the workforce. Half the men continued the construction, while the other half stood guard, fully armed and ready for combat. This forced a dual-action dynamic. One hand applied mortar to the stone, the other stayed clamped on the hilt of a sword. The enemies shifted tactics again, offering a compromise. They invited Nehemiah to stop building and meet for a peace talk in the valley of Ono, a trap designed to halt the work. Nehemiah refused to leave his post. He sent back a message stating that he was occupied with a great work and could not stop to entertain a distraction. Constructing new spiritual products is only half the battle. Unless those habits are defended with the same intensity used to build them, they will be surrendered at the first offer of a compromise. Despite mockery and death threats, the project reached its climax in record time. The physical walls of Jerusalem were completed in exactly 52 days. The physical wall was the outer shell for a triple restoration. Next came social restoration. Nehemiah dismantled corruption, stopping wealthy nobles from exploiting the poor. Sidily, spiritual restoration occurred when Ezra read the law and the people wept in mass repentance. Nehemiah stopped their weeping, teaching them that guilt is a poor fuel for a long journey. He reminded them the joy of the Lord provides the strength needed for a lasting recovery. Years later, Nehemiah returned to the city to find an unthinkable breach. Tobiah, one of the enemies who had tried to sabotage the wall, was living in a furnished suite inside the sacred temple courts. Nehemiah responded with force, throwing Tobiah's furniture out of the temple. His actions mirrored the way Jesus would later purge the temple, driving out everything that corrupted the sacred space. These walls serve a specific function. They protect the sacred from the encroachment of the profane. These boundaries don't exist to restrict life. They ensure what is holy remains uncompromised and secure.